Hey y'all, it's Brianna Hodges. I am super excited to be here with you today. I am Future Ready faculty and an educational consultant, and kind of just here to hang out with these fellas. So there you go.
What's up, everybody? Tom Murray here from Future Ready Schools. Excited to be hanging out with you there as well. And let's eat some wings tonight.
I'm really worried about my Yankee friend on this. This is Carl Hooker, everybody. How are you doing? Yeah, excited to be on back again for another podcast of EdTech Bites. And I'm a consultant, Future Ready faculty member, a little bit of everything. If you've named it, I probably tried it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, guys, for being on the show, for agreeing to be on this particular episode. This is episode 90. This is a very special episode. It's the wrap up of the I feel weird saying this, the 2020-2021 school year. And we're going to kind of do a little bit something off the beaten path. So for those of you listening, know that you can always catch the video on YouTube, because we got some great visuals that you're going to want to see. Maybe 10 minutes into it. So we are going to do a wrap up. We're going to answer 5 questions. So I've come up with 5 questions that I'm going to ask Bree, Tom, and Carl. However, before we answer those, we threw another component in. We've got wings. Carl just went to vegetarian, so there's no meat products.
They look chicken.
They look chicken, yeah. They're fickin'. They're fake chicken. That's
bacon. Yeah, chicken without the E.
And we all have the same hot sauces. So question 1, when I kick out question 1, we are going to sauce up our first wing. We are going to take a bite, and then we are going to all answer that in a particular order. But by sauce number 3 or 4, you might start seeing some sweat beating up on our foreheads. So that's what the show's all about, because this has definitely been a spicy year, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
Unintended.
Well played there. I love it.
That's how we roll. That's, as a matter of fact, wrong one.
Nope.
There we go.
Hey-o.
I've been telling myself for 6 months, I should probably label these. I've not yet done that. So, well, thank you very much. Let's get right into it. So the first sauce that we have here is our Frank's Red Hot. And I'm going to kind of show off my little wing cam that I have here. So we've got, I've got my 5 wings as well. We've got our sauces. Question number 1 is, what is your favorite EdTech tool of this school year, and why? And I know that all of us are of the mindset of, it's not about the tool, it's about what you do with it and the pedagogy behind it. But let's just think tool right now. And oh man, I've got mine sauced up. Ooh, let's bite into this.
That was good. Tasty. That's a good start.
Says the guy who's already chugging some water. I mean, like, how you gonna do that?
I'm just trying to clear my throat.
Whatever. Like, I mean, you gotta represent some Texas over here. We got the one boy from the Northeast, and I got two gentlemen from Texas, and y'all are both hitting the water already.
No. That's iced tea. You gotta have iced tea.
Mine's boiling hot ginger ale. That's what it is.
Ooh, lovely.
So I gotta say, Frank's doesn't disappoint.
No, it's a good sauce.
It's a good sauce.
Yeah.
Good sauce.
I mean, it's a true buffalo. It's a true buffalo flavor right there, right? Like,
it really is. It's the foundation of the original buffalo wing.
And from the Northeast, I'd say it's good from the kitty version. So I'm already diving into the second one here. So you guys can keep milking them over there, drinking the water. I'm just going to keep over here enjoying it.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to have some fun. So I'm looking forward to this. Let's go talk about EdTech.
Yeah.
All right.
Start it off, Bree. What has been your go-to tool this year?
Okay, well, it's my go-to tool in a year, which is the camera, and I am non-discriminatory as far as what the brand is, whether it's your webcam, whether it's a DSLR, whether it's your device's own camera, but having that camera to be able to record the process of learning, to demonstrate and to kind of use the playbacks for it. Use creatively all different ways. You just can't beat a good old fashioned camera. So that would be my go-to tool for sure.
Interesting. Tom?
So I'm going to just show them up a little bit.
Oh, close up on that, please.
So I'm actually going to give you 2 tools. First one, I know you said 2. I'm going to give you 2.
Of course.
So first one I'm going to talk about, I'm going to think about, when I think about the pandemic and I think about one of the things I've seen from educators all across the country, I think about how much collaboration has increased. And so when I think about a favorite collaboration tool, I think about Voxer, just a simple app. Many folks, I'm sure if you're listening, maybe you've been exposed to it or heard it. It's just the opportunity for voice, I think, creates efficiency. And I think when we've got that efficiency, I think that's really key, allowing people to be able to respond in their own time. And I know groups of principals, superintendents, educators that are just collaborating through it. And it also gets the use of like the space and the time. It breaks down those traditional barriers. And so I think that's a great collaboration tool. I also want to think about the importance of communication. And obviously communication is always vital, but I know educators have spent a lot of time, more so in the pandemic, communicating with families, putting stuff out, and they've cared about, the design. And not that they need to make things looking pretty for Pinterest, but somebody like me that have zero artistic ability, but still wants to put things out that, look somewhat professional or look, whether it's for a parent group or whoever it might be. So I'm going to throw out Canva, just a very common tool lots of people use because of the templates, because of the use. It's, you can pay $1 or $2 here or there if you want to use some things that are a little bit more upscale, but it's a super, you can use the free version for sure. And it just allows people to be able to communicate in really professional ways and do some really, really quickly. And so just 2 quick tools related to communication and collaboration. Back to my wings.
Good answer. Good answer.
All right. Well, I have 3 tools.
I knew that was coming. Saw that from a mile away.
Yeah. Can we get production to go split cam here? I need to go to my webcam, my wing cam as well, because I'm going to show you one of them right now, but I want to do side by side. So one of them is by far, because this is pandemic-esque, is having a very large monitor. I just could not do this job this year with everything we've had to go through without having a big giant monitor. And this is a nice little Dell 34-inch curve monitor that I picked up for like a couple $100. And so with that, I was able to have multiple screens going at the same time, doing polling and keynotes and a little bit of everything else while on Zoom, which is my second tool, of course, and that's an easy one. But out of all the tools, and I've used Teams and Google Hangouts, a little bit of everything, Zoom for me still does everything I need it to do and quickly, and it allows me to switch screens quickly because I do presentations in Windows, and so that's my second tool. My third one is Keynote. Again, this is no surprise if anyone who knows me. I love using Keynote for the Mac, and the fact that you can present it in window mode, much like now you can with PowerPoint too. It allows me to have that Keynote open and sharing it while I'm still able to see like a chat happening and some other things happening on other screens. So for me, it's big screen, Zoom, and Keynote.
Interesting. And you had to top us all with 3. So, all right, I'm going to go with 7.
Okay. Ready, go.
I've got a couple of tools. I'm with, I almost chose Canva, and it's definitely an honorable mention because whatever you're doing, you can make it 2.0 with Canva. You can make it look appealing to the eyes, and like everyone says, you eat with your eyes first. So if it doesn't look visually appealing and aesthetically,
not right now. I'm not.
He's just going to town over there. We haven't even got to the second one yet.
Yeah, all you can eat wing night here in Pennsylvania.
But, I'm kind of piggybacking off of what you said, Bree, and not that I changed my decision, but I'm thinking along the same lines as you with voice, and especially with Voxer too, like you mentioned a little bit earlier, Tom, I believe. I'm going to say that microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Microphone has been a tool that an external microphone at that can take a lesson from being presentable and audible to something that's a little bit more engaging and a little bit more immersive. If you have a dedicated microphone, and I know that teachers that have invested, whether it be a classroom budget on a good microphone, a portion of their own budget for a personal microphone. I've had a lot of people reach out to me like, hey, I want to take my stuff to the next level. I want to get one of those arms that you have, one of those boom arms, and what kind of microphone will work best? And that's exactly what I was going to get to, like a shotgun mic. What do you recommend? So I'm going to go with microphone because it's one thing to do something for students with good audio, but it takes it to the next level when your audio is much more immersive and clean. And I'm going to go with the external, like the multi-port USB adapter.
Oh yeah,
My
those are
God.
important. You gotta have that.
Important. Those are important. And gosh, any year like this year, that's been a go-to thing where you've had to plug in more than one device, or Apple has went to USB-C ports only. So now if you want to plug in anything that was made prior to 10 years ago or what have you, you got to have that USB-A port. Yeah, there you go. Carl's got his right there. So yeah, I've got a couple of them, and I've got one on deck just in case the other one goes out. So I'm going to go with those. So for sure. Good answers, everyone. Good answers. All right, so let's go straight to question 2. This will be wing number 11 for you, Tom. So
Texas Pete hot sauce. I've actually never had this, even though it says Texas on it.
Yeah, so this one is the Texas Pete original hot sauce, and it's almost like the Louisiana style hot sauce where you could taste the vinegar in there. So the question is, what is one important thing you learned from this past school year that we probably wouldn't have learned without the pandemic happening? Take a moment to chew on that, no pun intended. See, I got to leave at least. I'm going to sauce my wing up here with the Texas Pete.
That's a little warmer, not much.
That's how we do wings in Pennsylvania right there. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
All right.
Got my fresh plate over here as well. Can't
Nice.
mix sauces down there in Texas, so you got the fresh plates going.
That's why I have the 6th wing, man. So at the end, I'm going to take all the sauces and mix them
Oh,
up.
by the way, they just look like really bad chicken nuggets. That's all. So
they're amazing. Just my vegetarian heart is happy.
How's that hot sauce? Broccoli, good.
I'm excited that you weren't using carrots. I thought you were just gonna use carrot sticks, and I was
I love cauliflower wings. There's a place down here called Alamo Draft House. If you've ever been to it, they have amazing cauliflower buffalo wings. I ate those before I was vegetarian.
Awesome. Yeah.
My respect level just went down, but that's all right.
It didn't have much lower to go, actually, but
so I would say that the sauce, definitely a little bit more heat, but I could taste more vinegar for sure.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, clears you out.
So are we answering personally on this one, Gabriel, or what do you think? Professionally, or what?
However you want to answer. Go with your gut.
I think Carl should go first since he throws it out there like that.
Okay.
Go for it.
Nose goes.
So for me, I've definitely learned the joy of slowing down and spending more time with my kids than I ever have in my entire life. I lived a professional career before I quit a school district that I was, and Bree knows this because we shared an office together, unfortunately for her, but I was, 24/7. It was expected that you work 12 hours a day and went to the board meetings and did everything else on top of that, on top of everything else. And this is the wings. It's not my tears going here. But I didn't realize how much home life I was missing. And now that I'm here doing a lot of this remotely, I still will be traveling. I've been traveling. I've got some stuff coming up, but I'm really looking forward to that time that we've connected over the last several months. And we've started a Monopoly game that still hasn't ended. It started in March of last year. So at some point, maybe we'll get that off the kitchen table. I don't know. But I would say for me, that was the one thing that I'm going to take and hold dear and continue to hold dear as we move forward on a personal level.
Can I just get a fact check and see if your wife Renee happens to be on the other side of that camera for that answer? I just want to double check.
She's not. She was the one. She did go.
I'm thinking that question was loaded, and you had somebody on the other side of the camera being like, "You know your answer, Mr. You know the answer you bring." You had my heart there, Carl. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
She's just on the other side of that door. Just don't say anything. No. She's been a big part of it too. But yeah, I think it's the whole family dynamic. And I think a lot of people, this isn't unique. I mean, a lot of people I've spoken to, getting to meet neighbors, all those different things. I don't want to steal all your answers, but that's one of the things I feel like a sense of community has just really risen up out of this. And just to get a little bit emotional there, but it's an honest answer, man. The heat brings out the honesty, and it's not that hot yet.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I'm going to show you how well doused this is, by the way.
No,
I felt like absolute garbage over the last couple of days, and I will tell you, this is clearing me up real quick, which is really, really nice. So before I suck that one down, I think when I think about the reflecting on the pandemic, and I look at it through the eyes of my own children, my daughter who's a 5th grader, my son who's a 1st grader, and I think about all the educators that I've had the privilege of working with over the past year, one of the things that I hesitate to say we wouldn't have learned it if it wasn't the pandemic because I think great teachers have always believed it, but I think the pandemic has proven it. And that's how capable kids are when we give them independence. Because I look at it through the eyes of my little girl, and I watch, like, one of the real positives to the schooling in the pandemic for her, her independence levels have grown tremendously. You know, working federally, we see so much around this concept of learning loss. It's written into the latest bailout package. Obviously, the term learning loss has gotten a lot of pushback from a lot of different ways, because they're looking at it, how do you define the academic things that didn't happen? But the flip side is, look at all the things that did happen. And when I look at her, I mean, truly, she's getting up in the morning before dad does. Not that that says a whole lot, but she is. She's logging on. She's doing these things. She's getting for assignments. She's submitting things all 100% independently. Now, part of it is that's kind of who she is. Now, if I had to tell you my son, like, that's not happening on his level, like, at all. But sometimes I think we shortchange students and what they're capable of in terms of, like, giving them independence. And so I think one of my hopes coming out of the pandemic is to recognize the amazing things that have happened when we've given kids total flexibility, autonomy in so many different ways, and ultimately independence in terms of, like, where they learn, how they learn, the timeline in which they learn, and look at all the ways things have thrived. Because the flip side, and sometimes it's hard to look at, us as educators look in the mirror and say, for some kids, this has been a better experience. And that can be a real challenge to say that. But, like, if we're really honest, when we look at some of those areas, some kids that say, yeah, like, why am I sitting in a high school seat or whatever, X amount of minutes per day when I'm finishing the same workload in 2.5 to 3 hours or whatever the case might be? And that really begs a really good question that we need to look at when we start to look at the use of time differently, the use of space differently, remote learning, virtual opportunities, and a lot of those kinds of things. So I would say, first and foremost, I don't want to say people didn't know it prior to the pandemic. I believe the pandemic proved it for many kids when we've really given them opportunities and support, yet independence and flexibility, and watched them really thrive. And with that, I'm off to have my wings.
Top that, Brianna.
Well, let me see if I can try. So for me, the big thing that I have really taken away from this pandemic experience, and it is just kind of the importance of strategic messaging and communication. And so what I mean by that is, one of the things that has come along through this experience is that in many ways we have for the first time, a unified set of circumstances that we've all been going through, we each one of those brings its own situations and lots of different elements that come into it. But we all, are kind of processing through the different mandates that have come through and the responses and all of that. And so, what has really become important in all of that is the importance of communicating and messaging around our experiences, as well as around our decisions. So we know that no matter what, education has always been uncertain. Like, every element of learning is uncertain. We know that our kids are going to respond differently. We know that our teachers are going to present information differently. There's always an element of that uncertainty, and teachers and students have always thrived within that. That said, we've also made a lot of assumptions along the way, assumptions that people know what we're talking about, or that people are having, all these other ancillary and supplementary conversations that will then support their understanding whenever it comes to digesting that information. And the pandemic has really pushed back on that, right? Where we're having to articulate why we're making the decisions that we are. Present that in a lot of different ways to lots of different audiences based upon their interests. And we're seeing firsthand how positively that can go, right? Like, when it's done really well, and the strategic messaging and the strategic plans are there in order to make sure that we're getting that right message across, and that we're connecting with it in the best ways that we can. But we've also seen it go completely the opposite direction, where our best of intentions are completely and totally, they've fallen flat. They've even gone to the extreme of undermining and getting pushback on the things that we've worked so hard and so diligently to make successful, simply because we were not thoughtful in how we explained what's going on with that. And so I think that's that's the big part that, and I have a huge background in that. So of course that's going to be one of the first things that, that I think of. And I've been really fortunate to be working with a lot of school districts to kind of help them with that process of thinking through how important it is to connect those pieces. But more so than we've ever had before, we've got to depend on communicating what's going on inside our school with outside people. And so we've got to look beyond what our own assumptions are and really make sense and connect in with people in lots of different ways.
Interesting. Well, all of you brought up some very, very important things that I think all of us could definitely agree are things that we just wouldn't have learned. And my response to that question is definitely a blend of both personal and professional. And the importance is the one thing that stuck out for me. I think we finally realized what is important and what is not important, and the things that require our time and the things that consume our time that shouldn't at times consume as much time as we do, both on a professional and on a personal level. I mean, we saw it with state testing. State testing, they find, they said, at least here in Texas, that students this school year can opt in to take the assessment if they were virtual. So they didn't have to take the state assessment. I'd like to see where that's going to go, especially with the quote unquote learning loss and how much weight those assessments are going to have, because it really is going to take about 3 to 4 years to really see to try to get us back on quote unquote track with where we should be, according to organizations. And but there's a lot of things that we did as a family that we used to do before, but we do more often now because of the time that we've had with each other, under the same roof, 24 hours a day. But there's some things that some things just matter more now than they ever did before. Time is one of them. And not only time, but what you do with your time. You talked about Monopoly, Carl. We recently got back into Monopoly. We've binge watched a lot of The Simpsons. That's one of our family favorites. The kids are a little bit older and they could start actually not applying, but they know exactly what some of those innuendos are in that. And it's just, to me, it's important. I think we finally figured out what's really important in our lives. Some of us lost people during this pandemic because of the pandemic and because of other reasons. I mentioned it last August, I think. I didn't put this stuff out on social media, but I lost my father July 26th of last year, and I couldn't see him because of the pandemic. I could not say my goodbyes to him. I could not be there with the rest of my family to lay him to rest because of the pandemic. And that's something that I'm still struggling with to this day. But it really made me put things in perspective as far as importance. So each of you brought up a very, very good point. And so to those of you watching and listening, just know that, there are some things that this pandemic brought to us that we can learn from. And if we don't learn from it, then we're going to make the same mistakes again. So there's a couple of things that I don't ever want to go back to doing, a couple of habits that I don't want to ever go back to doing. So I'm going to make sure that I focus on the importance. And we got a new dog over the pandemic too, if you just heard me.
You and everybody else just about, except for us. Yeah. We have pulled off on that.
All right, sounds good. So that takes us right to question 3. And question 3 is all about sriracha. So,
sriracha.
Yes, that's a favorite for us here. So if you could go back in time to March 13th, 2020, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently other than invest in Zoom? That's what everyone said. Man, I wish I could go back and just buy a couple shares of Zoom or what have you. So, oh man,
I might have put too much on that one. We'll see what happens. Tom, you go first this time.
Thanks for volunteering me, Carl.
You've been voluntold.
I'd say, not to be sappy on you, but the very first thing I would do would be put my arms around my babies, hug them, and be like, it's going to be okay. Like, we're going to get through this. And I think one of the biggest things people have needed throughout the pandemic is hope, right? You know, Gabe, you just shared your story and part of your story and the trauma that truly ensues and what so many people have gone through around our nation. And, you know, fear and anxiety have been so real, like on the outside of our school walls and on the inside of our school walls. And, you know, on one hand, when I think about fear, and in the words of Zig Ziglar, it can mean like forget everything and run. And let's face it, there's been a lot of times in the pandemic that it's pretty understandable, like, right? Like the fear, the anxiety, the deaths all around us, the fear of like our grandparents, our parents, our loved ones, whatever that might be. But I also know it can mean, in the words of Zig Ziglar, that we face everything and rise. And when I think about our educators, I think about how that's what they've done every single day. I can think back to that March 13th. I was standing in Wyoming working with a school district, and the superintendent walked over to me and said, "Hey, Tom, like, we've got to break the news." And there was a little bit of rumblings at lunch that our governor just said this, and we're going to need to steal the last 20 minutes back from you. And normally as a presenter, like if they come in and like, we're going to have to cut you off early, like that's typically not a good sign. But in that case, I was like, listen, I get it. And I watched as that entire district had to soak in those moments of like, what is next Tuesday going to look like? And so when I look at that and I look back, I think it's recognize that the journey is not going to be easy, but understand that, you know, like as we continue to move forward, like we're going to get through this and there's going to be a lot of things to celebrate, you know, and working with districts now, I think back to those few weeks and I had a lot of things I was supposed to be that following the next 2 weeks. Of course, I didn't go, we didn't do those things. And we think about all the things that we were fearful of then. And then I think about in August, I get to do a lot of convocations. And of course, all of those were canceled in person, right? And because they all had to like, well, we've got to get training on the system. We've got training on this. We've got to figure out how we're going to do that. We're going to figure out what this is going to look like. But then we fast forward to now. And so many of the things that we worried about last March, so many of the things that we worried about, and I'm talking really from a school end, of course, in August, like many of the educators, many of you that are listening, the things you worried about then, you probably haven't thought about in a while. And that's not to demean back then. That's to say it's because you problem solved it, because you figured it out, because you worked collaboratively with your colleagues to say like, we will get through this. And going back to that thought of like collaboration being higher than ever before. And so I would say if I could give, you know, first and foremost to my babies being like, we're going to be okay here. But secondly, to colleagues saying like, let's find a way to break down our egos and our pride and break down the barriers that often separate us, sometimes in the hallway of a school, sometimes between schools, or maybe a highway between districts, to say, we're going to get through this. We're going to figure it out a way. And the stronger that we can be together in getting through it, the better off our kids will be. And so I guess if I could look back then, it's the advice and reflection that I'd probably give.
Well, mine is easy. I was just going to say, go buy more toilet paper because we ran out pretty quick here. And yeah, so thanks for that, Tom. That was my first inclination. Another thing that I would probably say, if I went back in time, I would tell myself, like, give yourself a chance to breathe, because I think, and it's no secret, Tom, Bree, and I are all, you know, we're not in schools right now. We're doing full-time work with consultancy and speaking. And when your entire income relies on something that is based on travel and in-person events, you know, you have to learn that, you know, you're going to have to either pivot, you're going to sink or swim, right? I hate to use those expressions, but I mean, it's true. And so we already had some plans to do different things and in terms of a business and business model, what that looked like. And, you know, it was going to be a 5-year plan that became, you know, a 5-week plan. And I'll be honest, I mean, it was a little dicey there for a little bit, but much like teachers that were going through the exact same thing, it's like, how do we change, you know, what we need to do to be more engaging online? What are some things we need to do to bring the students in? And in my case, bring attendees in to listen to what I have to say. So for me, I think it would have been to learn some of those skills earlier. I feel like I kind of dragged. I was in a moment of panic probably for a couple of weeks where I was like, we're going to have to figure this out. Where in retrospect, I should have just been right on that moment going, all right, here's an opportunity to learn something new right away. And I got there eventually, but I would say it probably took me longer than I should have let it go. And then the other thing I would just say real quickly is delete the Facebook app off your phone, because I did that last April and I felt a lot better because of it. And I'm still on Facebook. It's not that I'm not on Facebook. It's just I don't check it all the time on my phone.
So kind of piggybacking, I guess on both of those comments, I think that the thing that I wish that I could go back in time and do is be a little bit more transparent with my own like vulnerabilities of going through it. And what I mean there is like, first and foremost, like being not feeling like I had to have answers every step of the way. And it's funny, these fellas definitely have heard me say that, to quote Doc Holliday from Tombstone, my hypocrisy knows no bounds. But sorry, my one of my dogs is deciding that she's going to want to be on camera with us here in just a minute. But anyways, I certainly I am a huge proponent of being authentic and acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, and that the best learning is when we're learning together and when we're trying to figure things out along the way. But that said, like it was really hard for me to spend a lot of time in acknowledging that I didn't have answers, and so like trying to open up my mind and give myself some grace in not having answers, and then also in feeling like things could work however I needed them to, in order to make sure that that we really we're getting the most out of the experiences. And so I do wish that I had kind of documented my experiences more, if you will, and been more relied on my connections through social media and things like that that build me up, instead of looking at social media as that opportunity to compare. And so I think that's where I wish I could go back to do that and just be like, you know what, use your powers for good and do this in order to build grace and in order to build some learning opportunities and understanding for myself, instead of feeling paralyzed through comparison because I had this notion that other people had it figured out.
You guys summed that question up beautifully to the point where I don't think I need to say anything, because I don't know that I'm going to add anything more to what you guys had already said. So you guys covered both personal, professional, intrinsic, motivating, everything. So I think that is my cue to go to the next question, because I don't want to take anything that you guys said and mess it up. So I say we go with wing 4. Yeah. Cholula Chipotle. So I've got the wing cam on. Carl's wing cam. So what do we keep from this school year that we will keep building on in the next coming school year? So we've learned quite a bit. There's some things that we're going to stop doing, and there's some things that we're going to continue doing. And what are, I guess, highlight one of the things that we're going to continue, that we as society in general, with it in terms of education, what are we going to keep doing? And you know what? I think I'm going to start this one off, if you guys don't mind. So there's a lot of things that we did, and oh, hold on. I didn't even eat my wing yet. All right. Smoky. That's a smoky one. All right. So I think as educators, as teachers, I hope we don't go back to how we were comfortable before the pandemic. Now, if you were comfortable with not using any sort of technology integration or being innovative and just doing things as you normally would have because you were comfortable, you had those canned lessons, you had those packets, those binders, and you were forced to digitize that stuff. And if we're looking at the SAMR model, if you were doing just very basic substitution, that took a lot out of you. That took a lot of you because that's something that you were not comfortable with. And I hope we don't go back to doing things the way we used to, that were not innovative and were not conducive to learning with our students. So I'm going to keep it at that. Who wants to take it away from here? Carl.
All right. Yeah, I got this. I was like trying to get my camera because like my phone's about to die. I just realized too. I was like, that's my wing cam may be gone in a minute. Yeah, I think for me, it's going to be figuring out alternate ways to have instructional delivery. And I've been talking about this for a while, but I feel like we've been sold down the river of this idea that you can only deliver instruction one way, and that's the physical in-person student-to-teacher method. We've been talking about breaking that wheel for a long time, and it just hasn't happened. Well, we've entered the future. We are in the future, as so to speak. So what can we do going forward? I would say we need to differentiate our instructional delivery models, and that means asynchronous, synchronous, some on demand, some virtual. Like Tom was saying, certain kids, one of my kids has thrived in this environment. Let's keep those options open going forward. That's what I think we should keep. And I'll take a bite. Sorry, I forgot to do that first. Oh, that's good. Very smoky.
Yeah, very smoky. Very smoky.
All right. So I agree. I think that hopefully we are going to continue to see, we've been talking about personalized and individualized instruction for a long time. And we've talked about how important it is to, to really approach every learning opportunity as if it is an individual learning opportunity. I really, truly hope that we continue to hold on to that as we move forward, and that we don't try to kind of force the square, the square into the round, into the round hole of forcing this one size fits all experience just because it's easier to manage. And with that, I'll throw in a second thing that I hope that we hold on to is the importance of community, whether that be the classroom community, whether that be the school community, whether it be our larger community as around us locally, from a state, from a national, and from an international, really truly looking at the community opportunities and the collaborative opportunities that come from a supportive environment. So those would be my two things of what I would hope that we don't lose.
And I would say before I get started, I need a quick thing of blue cheese to get rolling here.
Oh boy,
hey, Tom! Before you get started with your response, I've been watching as I've been kind of in the production back here, going back and forth from scene to scene. I don't usually do ASMR videos in that, but I would pay to just watch you eat wings. Like,
wow.
So this is wing number 46 and 47 since we started. I'll tell you what, I literally did not eat all day because I knew I'm gonna have a wing competition. So no, this isn't 5 wings for Tom. This is called breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So thank you. And I want to say thank you for your kind words about my wing eating. It really means a lot, and I appreciate that. So thank you for the opportunity there. So when I think about this one, the answer is easy. It's digital equity. On March 13th, let's just tell it like it is. Some places started to care. And I really don't want that to sound harsh, but that's the reality, because we soon realized that there's 16.9 million children from our Future Ready report. 16.9 million children disproportionately are Black and brown students that don't have internet access at home. And it's been front and center because we realized, like, if they can't connect, they can't learn. Some people call that like the achievement gap, often in different ways. It's the opportunity gap. And to really switch that phrasing, the opportunity gap became more prevalent because if they couldn't connect, it wasn't there. And so here's my question as we think about moving forward. We've purchased in a ridiculous amount of EdTech and hotspots. Come this fall, you've identified the need. Are you taking that stuff back? Because now we've said we recognize that you have the need. We know you don't have internet access at home, but now because we're face to face, we're going to take that stuff back. Before the pandemic, the number was about 70% of our teachers asked kids to do something digital. And we know mid-pandemic, 16.9 million kids couldn't. So when we talk about things like opportunity gaps moving forward, we need to make sure, listen, it's not digital equity, and equity as a whole is not a checkbox activity. Check, I got the computer, check, I got the access. And now come the fall, because we're face to face, we're taking it back. And I really believe districts will take a stance on equity in what they do with those things come the fall when kids come back. Do they maintain, hey, this is important and we recognize you don't have that access and we want you to have that access when you get home, because otherwise we're asking you to do things that you can't do, and we recognize that that makes that playing field a very slippery slope for those that don't have access to home, and we're not going to do that to our kids any longer. So I would say moving forward, districts have an opportunity to really show their true colors, because equity has been front and center. but it's not just about talking about it, it's about action. So my question is like, what are you going to take with it moving forward? I fully get there's budgetary restraints when it comes to this, but we've also fortunately just got a boatload of money coming in to support this specific area as well. And so when is it looked at as this a non-negotiable? Like we would never look at our electric bills in our district and be like, should we offer electricity this year or no? It's just the way we do business. And if we're going to ask kids to do something digital outside of school, to me, like looking forward, we have the moral imperative to give them the opportunity to do so. And so fortunately, the FCC, who we work with through Future Ready Schools, like they stepped up the funding that's available now, the broadband pieces that just came through. There's a lot of things that are in place here, but we can talk about equity or we can show that it's a priority. So moving forward, let's show that it's a priority.
Very well put. Last night, I almost loaded the gunshot sound clip because there were shots fired, man.
Boom.
Shot fired.
Boom.
Yeah. So yeah. Very, very well put from all of you. I mean, let's just keep moving forward and not go back, I think is the real sentiment here. So we've got our last question here. But before we get to that last question, let's get to the sauce. So we've got our last sauce is a mango habanero of your choice. However, you went with a yellowbird sauce.
Yep, my favorite, right here in Texas, man. Yellowbird is amazing. They should sponsor the show.
They should.
Super hot, but oh my God, I put way too much on there. That's going to be a problem.
All right, good. And our last question is, how can people connect with you? Because you guys are a great asset to any PLN and anybody who wants to learn out there, because you guys, you're not in the classroom, you're traveling and doing stuff and presenting and inspiring for a reason, because you're very good at what you do. Oh, look like
I got towels going on here. I'm going with the not to throw your question off, but this is dinosaur barbecue. So those of us in the Northeast, like this is out here. This is how we really do it in the Northeast, right there. Don't tell me about your hot sauce in Texas. Like this is how we do it. Dinosaur barbecue, Devil's Duel, habanero, hot pepper, hot sauce. So
it's got hot in there twice. That's when you know it's hot.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say, and I didn't put like just a little bit. I went all like I'm not sleeping tonight. I put the heart butter amount on. So anyway, back to your question. You were saying, sorry.
Did you have to sign a waiver when you purchased
it? Clearing the throat. I told you, clearing it out.
No, how can people connect with you on social media and your
Absolutely. So I'd love to connect with folks. So on Twitter, it's at Thomas C. Murray. On Facebook and Instagram, it's Thomas C. Murray EDU. You can check them all on the website, thomascmurray.com. Would love to connect, reach out anytime. Check out some of the tools, resources, all free on the site. If I can help you in any way, feel free to reach out.
Got a mid-bite. I love it. I love it.
But what I was going to say is I would like to acknowledge that as the lone lady in this group, I have yet to have a towel. I have yet to have water. I have yet to have milk. I think I win. I would just like to say. Mm-hmm. So you can find me online where I will not be chewing at Hodges EDU on every single social media pretty much out there. So would love to connect, would love to talk about your plans for the coming year and how I can help connect you with the right people, how I can be of service in any form or fashion, whether that's to cheer you on from the side or come in beside you and help plan some opportunities for you. But yeah, would love to connect. You can find me. I also at my site is briannahodges.com. So there you go.
And sorry, I was just choking up. Brianna was choking me up there with her competitiveness and nature that she tends to have. You can find me at carlhooker.com or at my blog, hookedonInnovation.com, Twitter at Mr. Hooker, Instagram, Hooker Tech, Snapchat, I think it's Hooker Tech. I don't even know it that well. I have two podcasts, Undisrupted, which is run through Future Ready Schools, as well as Tom and Brianna. They both also have podcasts. You got to check those out. I also have one through ISTE. And just doing lots of different things. I've got a couple of courses coming out. I got one on blended learning that's coming out this summer. If y'all want to check it out, asynchronous, talking about all the things that we learned this year and applying them into an in-person classroom, what that looks like. And happy to help out all of you. And of course, thank you again, Gabriel, for letting us come on your show and make kind of somewhat fools of ourselves. But we did a pretty good job, I think. Yeah. We didn't burn up too much.
Yeah, sounds good. Bree, I'm surprised you weren't sipping lemonade.
I know. See, that's a good plug right there. I totally forgot. I totally forgot to mention that I actually with Lainey Rowell created a podcast out of the pandemic. Right, we decided to do what educators do best. We took lemons and we threw it together, and we were making lemonade learning. So have that podcast as well as through Future Ready learning through uncertainty. So we're rebranding that. We did our first episode as Coaching Through Uncertainty. We're rebranding it. It should be coming out in the next few weeks for our next season. So we hope that you'll check those out.
Sounds good. And for those of you listening and watching, you know that you can connect with me on social media at EdTech Bites on all platforms. You can check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/EdTech Bites. And obviously subscribe to the podcast on most podcast application apps, as well as the YouTube channel by simply searching EdTech Bites on YouTube. Oh, and because of Carl Hooker, on the old Clubhouse as well.
Yay! Got on the Clubhouse.
Yes, and we'll see where that goes with Twitter Spaces now. So
that's right.
Whole episode on its own.
And Skilled Space, which is the other one that's coming out.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for being on the show, being a part of it, for joining and talking about the 2020-2021 school year wrap up. Tom, you had your mouth closed almost the entire time. I noticed that you're breathing through your mouth this time, though.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm struggling.
Look at the red. I love the red.
I got the tears. This is the first podcast I've ever done where I'm sweating at the end. My lips are burning, and I'm like, "Don't come back to me," because I can't say anything coherent right now. I got towels over there. I'm like, so I'm just signing off. It's been fun.
It's a rare moment that he's speechless, but I like.
So let's go ahead and say Bree won. Like I just need all the.
Sure.
For sure. You take.
There we go.
And with it. So before we go, I do have that one last question for you, and we'll start with Tom. Corn or flour tortillas, buddy?
I'm gonna say whatever I said on the last podcast.
Sounds good.
I think it was flour. I think I'm going flour.
I think you did go flour. Yeah.
I'm flour all the way. Warm flour tortillas.
Got it, Carl.
I'm really digging the new hybrids. These corn flour tortillas. Have you seen those? Those are pretty tasty, actually. So I'm into the hybrids. I know that's not your question, but I gotta mix it up.
They're good. They just have a different consistency, a
little bit different, but they hold up a little bit better than the corn.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys have a great evening. Thank you very much again, and please stay safe.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.